Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm currently in the hospital if you can't tell, because we had our baby. So today, as long as we're feeling up for it, I feel like we're gonna kind of vlog taking him home because I want to look back on this day. Because this was the most intense 3 days of our entire life. I will share the story at the end of this video on his birth and everything, but nothing went according to plan. I don't think at all. Maybe the first few hours of birth went normal. Pretty much nothing went according to plan. There were some very traumatic moments.
There were a couple things that went according to plan.
Yeah.
Like the morning.
It started off according to plan, and then
things took a U-turn.
Things got real scary, but we made it. We weren't even supposed to give birth in a hospital, if that tells you anything, and here we are, going on 3.5 days in the hospital. So he is healthy. I'm healthy. Everything's checking out, and that's all we can ask for. But I'll share the story at the end of this video of what happened, or we'll both sit down and share the story with you. So stay tuned. We're gonna take him home. We are getting discharged today, so we're going home. How do you feel about going home?
Pretty excited.
I am too. I feel like
I'm excited to sleep in my own bed.
Yeah. I feel like yesterday, we could have gone home yesterday, but I feel like I was not ready. I feel like this morning I woke up and I was like, okay, like I'm ready to be home. Like we literally just played euchre on our phone because we were bored and he's just sleeping. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready to like be home and have more to like do and stuff. But like yesterday I was just still not fully healed, and I mean I'm not fully healed now, but I was like really not ready. But I feel a lot better today. I feel ready today. I feel like we can conquer today. Yesterday the idea of going home was still scary, so it's not as scary anymore. No. Leo was born on February 26th, 2025 at 11:03 p.m. He was a whopping 10 pounds. Well, technically he was 9 pounds and 15 ounces. But he went doo-doo before he came out. And so they said if he wouldn't have done that, he would have been 10 pounds. So I'm telling people he's 10 pounds because I want that extra ounces of credit. And he was 21.5 inches long. He a big boy. Just like his dad. He actually looks just like his dad. Oh. He's also probably the cutest baby I've ever seen in my entire life. No offense to any babies that you think might be cuter, but you're wrong, so. What are those?
These are my dad's shoes.
Oh, gosh. We are all packed up and loaded up. We're about to do this thing.
Heck yeah, we are.
Look at how cute he is. Oh my gosh, I can't handle it. So like, what song do you play on the drive home? This is like an iconic moment. We're home, buddy, we're home. Hey. Let's do it.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my goodness. These are from my students. That's so cute. Aww.
You worked your hat off, buddy. Okay.
We're giving him a tour.
This is the kitchen.
He's not going to remember it because he's asleep.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Your house is clean. We love you. Oh, nice. So, this is the kitchen. This is where we make all of Mommy and Daddy's food. Your food just comes right out of Mommy's, so your food's not in here yet, okay?
He said, okay.
Mm-hmm. This is the living room. This is the room in which we live, okay?
And that's your swing. We've had it all ready for you. And that's Curly's bed. You're going to get to meet her soon.
Yeah, bathroom. This is where we all do our number 2s. You just got the little diapers right now, but eventually we'll fix that for you. This is your room, buddy. This is where you're going to sleep. You sit up. You're going to sleep. Where Mommy's going to feed you sometimes. Those are all your books. This is Mommy and Daddy's room. And another little bed for you to sleep in sometimes. This is Daddy's hangout room. This is where you and I are gonna hang out for the Buckeyes.
Connor's parents just got here to cook us dinner. He's still so slumped. Baby's out with dad and grandparents. I'm gonna take a shower. I can't wait to wash my hair. Dad of the year. Mom's off to bed.
Yeah.
Say goodnight.
Good night, buddy.
Say goodnight.
Good night, buddy.
Our birth story. We get to share it now. Okay, so the first reason I really want to film this video is because I don't want to forget details and I want to be able to look back on it. As you can see, Leo is a lot bigger than the first part of this video. And that's because one, life is busy with a newborn. It's hard to find time to just sit down and film a video. But two, it was a very traumatic event. So I wanted to like make sure we both fully processed his birth before just throwing it onto the internet. So we'll dive right in. On February 26th, the day he was born, I started laboring at like midnight that morning. And my contractions were like very mild. I was hesitant on if I was even in labor. I was like, okay, maybe not, but I was kind of dozing in and out of sleep, but I was still in like some pain and discomfort. So I was like, I can't quite tell if this is labor or not because it's not that intense yet. And so then I came out into the living room because I didn't want to wake him up yet because I was like, one, if this isn't labor, I'm just waking him up for no reason. And two, if this is labor, it's not to the point where I need him yet, so I'm not gonna wake him up just so he could stare at me and while I lay there. Like, we're not gonna go to the hospital this early on.
Which I appreciated.
Yeah. And to preface this story also, it's really important to say our whole plan was to have him at a birthing center. And so where it would be all completely natural birth and they can't take you until you're 4 centimeters dilated at the birthing center, and they're like 30 seconds from a hospital. So if anything were to go wrong, you're like super close. You can do a transfer really easily. So it's very safe. And with all of that, I didn't want to go too early because I didn't want them to have to send us home because it's a 40-minute drive for us to the birthing center. And so I was like, I don't want to drive all the way there and then have to come all the way back and then all the way back there once I was there. So I knew we were going to be laboring at home for a little bit. So I went out into the living room and I laid on the couch and dozed in and out for a little bit, and then things started to get a little more intense. And so I would like try to lay down and sleep and rest through it because I wanted to conserve my energy. But I was also like, this is too hard to rest through because it's kind of painful when it's on. But my contractions were mild and they were still like 8 minutes apart, 9 minutes apart. And I knew that I was also not planning on getting an epidural or doing any sort of medication. So I was like trying to be like mentally like, this is easy. You're not to the hard part yet. Like I was very mentally prepared, I feel like, for this birth. And so that happened at midnight. So I went out in the living room and I labored there for probably like 5 hours. And I woke him up around 5 a.m. when I was like, I am definitely in labor. She called the midwife, let her know that like I'm in labor. Not that we're necessarily ready to come in yet, but like they need to know that this is happening. So I woke you up, right, at like 5 a.m. and you popped right up and you were like, okay. And you're like, what do you mean to cool me calm? And you were like, it was so funny because you went from like being dead asleep to like instant like, what do I need to do? What do we need to do? Like I thought you were gonna be like real groggy, like what do you need? You like snapped right awake. And so you called the midwife and we talked to them and they were like, okay, wait till your contractions are closer together and then you can come in. And we were like, okay. So we went out into the living room, hung out there for a while. We watched some Friends. We played Sorry because we were just trying to do anything to distract me because it was still early labor. And so we were doing lots of things. Contractions started to get a little more intense where I wasn't really able to like do much through them, but like breathe. So I could like talk through them in the beginning, and then it started to get to the point where I couldn't really talk through them. But then in between them, I was like totally fine. And then we labored at home for a little bit. I kept snacking, and then it hit the point where contractions got closer together. You had been like timing them, and I wasn't really looking at the timer. And I feel like it hit the point where you were like, I feel like these are getting pretty close together. I'm gonna start packing the car, right?
No, I started packing the car a little bit, like almost immediately. Like at 5 a.m, we had made that first phone call, and I got like the things that I knew we weren't gonna need the rest of the time we were at home. I got those into the car.
9:30, 10 o'clock or so, and I knew that we were getting close. And so I started packing more of the necessities. But it wasn't really until like 10 or 10:15 when we made that call and started heading down to Fort Wayne.
Yeah. Once it started to get more intense, I was like in the shower a lot too. I know I got in the shower at least twice. I labored so much better there. Like the pain relief, it felt like medicine. Like the water, it was amazing. So I really like laboring in the shower. And a lot of people will say like, get in a tub, and we have like a pretty big tub. However, like I wanted to stand so bad. Like sitting was just not it. I could not sit through contractions. And so like being able to stand with water in the shower was way better than like sitting in a tub for me when we were at home. So we get to the birthing center, and well, we loaded up the car and then called the midwife, left for the birthing center. We got there around 12 o'clock, like noon, and ish, right?
We got there about 11:30.
11:30ish.
By the time you got checked in and everything, it was about
like
noon.
Okay, so by the time they like checked me, I was dilated at 9.5 centimeters, which is like you need to be at 10 centimeters to start pushing. So it was like insane. They were like, "You're at 9.5 centimeters," and I remember like my jaw dropping. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
You started crying.
Yeah, I was like so excited because I was just hoping to be at 4 centimeters because I'm like, if I'm at 4 centimeters, that means we don't have to go home. And so when she told me I was at 9.5 centimeters, I was like honestly like really proud of myself because I was like, I labored like at my house for that long. That's like so cool. So then she was like, what do you want to do? Like this baby's gonna be coming soon. You're gonna have to start pushing soon. Where do you want to be to birth this baby? And I was like, well, I kind of like pictured like a tub birth, but like until we get to that 10 centimeters, I'd like to be in the shower. So I got in the shower and I labored to that 10 centimeter.
Backing up a second though, when we found out that you were at 9.5 centimeters, like I just want to give a little bit of that thought of like where we were at that point. Like obviously you were super excited, but the thought like at the birth center that we were going to, their standard practice is that once the baby's born, you know, you have to be a low risk pregnancy in order to be there. And assuming that everything went perfectly smooth, which is, you know, the vast majority of their births, you go home within 4 to 6 hours of delivery. So you like take a nap, eat a good meal, and you head home so you can sleep in your own bed, and then you come back 24 hours later for all the checkups and stuff. So when we get there at like 11:30 or noon, we're thinking, and she's already 9.5 centimeters, we're thinking, okay, we've got probably about an hour of pushing, roughly, because that's what most people do is about an hour of pushing. And then baby's here, and then 4 to 6 hours later, like we should be home around dinner time.
Yeah.
Like I should probably call my parents to have them have dinner ready for us when we get back to our house.
Yeah, that was kind of our thought process because so far along we were like, this is gonna be great. We're gonna be in and out of here.
That was my thought process. I don't think had the mental capacity to do that at that time, but that was literally what I was thinking. At this point,
like contractions were intense, and I had no medication at all, so I was like pretty like focused on what I was doing. Like my mind was only on like getting this baby out and like what my body needed to do. And so I labored in the shower, back to that, for a while, and then they were like, where do you want to have this baby? Because I was like, I'm kind of feeling the urge to push, and they were like, why don't you want to get in the tub? And I was like, yeah. So we get in the tub, and I pushed there for like an hour, and
her water also hadn't broke up until this point.
Correct. And the birthing center likes to do a lot of things naturally. They will break your water if they want you to, but they were like, I think they asked if they wanted me to break my water. They did. They were like, she's like, I can break your water if you want, but I don't think we need to. I think it's going to break on its own. I remember her saying that. And I was like, yeah, I don't want you to break my water until it gets to the point where like it needs to break and it's not breaking. So we got in the tub and I pushed in the tub for a while. While in the tub, my water broke. And so I pushed longer in there, and they just like weren't seeing any progress, and they couldn't really figure out why. And so they just kind of assumed that baby was positioned in a weird way. And so they were like, why don't we get you out of the tub and put your body in a different position? And a lot of times that helps shift baby into a different position, so then you'll be able to push better. And I was like, okay. So we climbed out of the tub. At this point, I am like exhausted because I just pushed for an hour, and they were like barely seeing progress, and I wasn't like feeling progress. Like a lot of women say they can like feel their baby like slither out and like drop lower and stuff, and I was like, I'm not feeling him move at all. Like I don't know where he is. He feels the same position that he was a week ago. Like, and so we get out, and I go to the bed, and they have me in like a bunch of positions in the bed. that they had there, and I pushed in that bed for how long would you say?
You got out of the tub around 1:30, and you were probably like just normal pushing in a couple like normal-ish positions for probably an hour. It was probably about 2:30 when your next point comes in.
Yeah. So then they were like, okay, we're still not seeing progress. We need to try some like other positions. So they call in like another midwife to like put me in different positions to like get him to come. And so at this point I was just doing whatever they say, but they were like rolling me from side to side. They were putting me on all fours. At one point they put me like inverted upside down. So they had like my knees on a couch and my forearms on the floor, and I had to push like practically upside down. They also had me push like at one point in like a back bend, so I was like laying flat on a table on my back, except for they had like pillows and like towels and stuff rolled underneath my back so that my body was like making a V shape, and like I had to like push through that because there
It was way more than pillows and towels. They had like a special thing for
whatever
that.
they put underneath so that my body was like in a V shape, like an upside down V, and they had me pushing there because my like lower abdomen had so much tension in it, like it was so tight that they were trying to like, they thought that that's why baby was like struggling to get through because there was so much tension there. So like if we can like relax those muscles, baby might be able to come out. They tried that position. We tried peanut ball. We were literally trying like every position in the book. We tried their swing. We tried like like hanging from the swing, holding my whole body weight on the swing. I pushed on you a few times. Like I was holding on you on a lot. Like I would just like hang on to you while pushing. Like,
or if we were moving from one area of the room to another area of the room, 9 times out of 10, like as she was moving, a contraction was gonna hit before she got to her destination. So it was like me walking alongside and then her like having her hand up on my neck like this, and then just kind of wrapping
around to like,
as soon as the
because like when
contraction
the contractions were so intense because my body was literally trying to push this baby out, but he just like was not coming out, and so it was just so intense, and like they were like a minute or less apart. Like my contractions were like so close together, I could barely make it from one place to the other without having them. I was pushing constantly. And so after about 4.5 hours, they were like, all right, we're going to give you a break from pushing. And I literally remember thinking, like, you can't push pause. Like, you can't push pause on labor. What do you mean break? And they're like, well, we just don't want you to, like, push with it. Like, before they were, like, having me push with literally everything I had. They were like, push, get mad, Abby, scream, let it out, like, push. And I was like, I am literally pushing with everything I have in me. And so they were like, we just don't want you to push, like, with everything you have. Because every time I pushed, his heart rate would drop a little, which is kind of normal, but it like was not coming back up fast. Like each time I pushed, it was returning back to normal slower and slower. And so that was concerning them. And so they were like, we just need you to take a break without pushing to like give baby a break because he's like his heart rate is starting to not look very great. So we laid on the bed and you read scripture for like 30 minutes and I dozed in and out. I would get a contraction and like breathe through it, and like sometimes I push through it because literally like when you're that far in labor, your body, you can't not push. Like there some of those contractions, like I literally could not do anything but push. Like my body forced myself to push. Some of them I could like breathe through without pushing. So we laid there for like 30 minutes while the midwives and everything were essentially went in the hallway and like
game plan.
They were like, what are we gonna do? This baby isn't coming and we don't know why. And so we went back they came back into the room and they were like, okay, Abby, we're gonna have you try and push one more time and like see if we can get him out. So they put me in the position that they wanted me in, and then I pushed again a couple more times, and they finally were like, okay, he's not coming. His heart rate has dropped really low now and it's not coming back up. So like we really think you need to transition, like you need to go to the hospital because they have just better technology there. They have different instruments. They were still thinking of vaginal birth at this point, and they were like, they can use different tools to get him out vaginally than we can here. And so I was like, okay. Well, I wasn't that happy about it, but because we had a very big vision and dream for like how we wanted his birth to happen. But the main thing was we wanted him to be healthy, and at that point, in order to keep me and him healthy, like going to the hospital was the decision we needed to make. So they originally told us we needed to go by ambulance because his heart rate wasn't coming up, and so that's like, if his heart rate isn't in a certain range, then they have to like transfer you by ambulance. But his heart rate ended up coming up at like right before we left. And so I was able to just hop in our car, which was way better. Because I feel like an ambulance would have taken longer, honestly. Because they would have to, like, load you in, load you out. Where I could literally just hop in the driver's seat. You drove right up there, and we hopped out. So then we got to the hospital. I can let you take over from here.
Sure. We pulled into the hospital, and unfortunately, Abby's sister and mom, their lack of boundaries came in handy. And they
were there to pray. They weren't there
100%. But yeah, so it came in handy. So they came and took our car. I went in with Abby, and as we're walking in the front door of the hospital, we were heading down the hallway that we were supposed to. We had our midwife with us. She was going to help us with the transfer, that whole process. Well, some security lady decided that she wanted to pick today to fight me. And so we got halfway down the hallway and she started screaming at us that we needed to come back and check in. We were like, that's just not gonna happen, dude. Like, not gonna happen. Well, she ended up making us go back and check in. The midwife was pissed. I was pissed. And then they started asking really stupid questions while Abby's having contractions against the wall. Asking for her name, her date of birth, her social security number, which I did not know. I still don't know her social security number. And I certainly wasn't going to ask her in that moment. And that's what I told the security lady. And she was like, I guess we can probably skip that part.
And she's like, how far along is she? You're like,
does it matter?
She's having a baby. Please let us go.
Yeah.
And our midwife, I remember her like looking at the security lady and being like, I called the doctor. Like, I literally talked to her doctor.
The doctor's on her way down.
Her doctor told us to meet her here. We don't need to check in. Like, we know where we're going. And the security lady was just not having it. We get to my room.
And they put that epidural in.
Well, after an hour. I still had to labor there for like an hour unmedicated.
Yeah.
And then they put the epidural in.
Yep.
And at that point, I was like, this is the best thing that I've ever had in my entire life. I was finally, because I had been laboring for so long that I was just so tired too. And I was literally like, I'll do backflips for you. If I could feel my legs, I'd go run a marathon right now. Like, I felt so good when they put that epidural in. I felt like I was on a cloud. Yeah, buddy. And so they had me push a little bit with the epidural in. And then it got to the point where they were like thinking we were going to have to do a C-section. Our doctor is super itty bitty and petite, and she was able to like check me by putting essentially, not to be too graphic, but like her entire hand up to where she could feel his whole head. And so at that point she was like, okay, so the issue is essentially that his head is just too big. Like, it's not gonna fit. Like, his head is larger than your pelvic bone. Like, so that's why he wasn't coming out, was because it wasn't that he was positioned incorrectly. It was just that his head was so big. Like, it was just larger than my pelvis. And so he just couldn't fit. And so she essentially, his heart rate ended up dropping too much to where they were really concerned. So they were like, we're going to have to take you in for a C-section.
They have to put a catheter in when they give you an epidural. Unfortunately, baby's head was too low that it was pushing against her bladder. So they tried a normal size catheter, and that didn't go in. They tried the next size down, that didn't work. They tried the next size down, that didn't work. They used an adolescent catheter, and that didn't work. And finally, the ER had sent up a infant-sized catheter. And so finally, an infant-sized catheter was the only thing that they could get in. And that was over the span of like the 4 hours that we were there, from the time they put the epidural in all the way up until they were prepping us for surgery, because you have to have a catheter in when you go into the operating room for a C-section. So
yeah,
they knew they had to drain her bladder somehow.
Yeah, and that was another thing her doctor said after. She was like, there were just so many things that kept going wrong. She was like, I've never not been able to get a catheter in somebody. So that was kind of funny. For the C-section, all that, I was able to take like an hour-long nap before they took us into the C-section, which was good. Really good, because I needed that. Connor got like a good meal.
I got to go eat Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, my family went and grabbed him food, and so that was a good break for us. And then they go to take us in for the C-section, They get him all gowned up and do all the things they need to do, and they take you in there, and everyone that's ever gotten like a scheduled C-section that I've talked to is like, you don't feel anything, it's just like some pressure. And I'm not going to be too graphic, but essentially I felt way more than pressure. And we think it's just because my body was so tired that like it was kind of rejecting the anesthesia and everything, or not anesthesia, the like epidural medication and stuff. And so the anesthesiologist like kept upping my meds, like my painkiller stuff, my epidural, like the entire time we were in there, because I was literally like on the table screaming in pain because it hurt so bad. And I was like yelling at him. And so he like kept putting more in. And so I was so drugged up. I like barely even remember the C-section. I didn't even realize there were complications with our C-section until Connor told me after what had happened, because I was just like so focused on surviving at that point because I was in so much pain. So you can tell a story of C-section because I wasn't fully conscious.
So they wheeled her into the OR, and they had this nice little chair that they had set up in the hallway for me. I think that's just considered the dad chair. And so I got to sit out there for like 5 or 10 minutes while they were prepping her and getting her out of her hospital bed onto the operating table. And I go in, and they had me sit up by her head. And they had already kind of begun cutting into her and stuff when I was told to come into the room. And finally they get her opened up, and they see the baby, and they're like, and it seemed like everyone in unison almost was like, that is a big baby. Like, that is a huge baby. And she was trying to push that out. Yeah, honey, that wasn't going to happen. Yeah, all sorts of comments like that. And because he was so large, and because Abby had pushed for so long, his head had kind of gotten lodged in her pelvis. And when you open up the uterus like that, it creates a vacuum effect. And so it like he was already stuck. And so that vacuum effect really, made him even more stuck. And then because of his size, he didn't quite fit through the incision that they had made already. And so it got way more complicated, way quicker. It really felt like I was in the middle of an ER show. So I started yelling, "Page Dr. So-and-so, and page this guy, and page that girl," and everything. And nobody ended up making it. But
apply pressure to the head.
Yeah, and they were like yelling, "Apply pressure to the head." And again, there's a lot of graphic details, but I'm going to spare that. But eventually they made a second incision on her uterus instead of just like a normal horizontal line. She's got like a little T. And so eventually they were able to pop his arm out, which broke that vacuum effect, which then allowed them to get the rest of his body out. At which point they like held him up, and they cut his cord and everything, and then they rushed him right over to kind of like an incubator station, where they had a respiratory nurse and a NICU nurse waiting to kind of help get him cleaned up, do his first couple of checks and everything, make sure that he's super healthy, especially given the complications that we had gone through. And they kind of started with like Abby's side of the procedure to like close her up and finish everything off. After they had kind of gotten the initial like wiped him down a little bit so that he wasn't disgusting, they had me walk over to him, and I got to kind of see him for the first time, and me at this point, like the tension had kind of been diminished and everything, so people were a lot more relaxed. And so we started taking bets on how big he was. 9 pounds 1 ounce. He's a big guy. No, you're wrong. Like, I'm no good at this, but he's got to be heavier than this. 9 pounds 4 ounces. And people just started shouting out numbers, and the highest number that anyone said was 9 pounds, like 6 or 7 ounces or something. And so they finally weighed him, and he was 9 pounds 15 ounces, and everybody was shocked.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane. Everybody, no way. Like, it was crazy. At which point, like, through all this, like, Abby was expecting to see her child. Well, she couldn't see him, and she was all loopy. So she started, like, yelling for me. But I wasn't there anymore either.
Everyone just disappeared.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there open, like
So
organs exposed on the table. Everyone disappears.
Yeah. Well, the doctors were still
The
there.
doctors were there, but I was like,
But I disappeared.
my husband and my baby are not in
Yeah.
sight.
So she started yelling for me. Well, I looked over my shoulder, and because of the way the room was set up, oh, well, that's the inside of my wife. So I'm not going to look that way. I'm going to be a terrible husband for a couple seconds. I'm going to be an okay dad here. And so anyway, we got all this checks done and everything, and they had me go sit down with Abby. I'm at her head again, and they gave him to me, and I got to hold him for the first time, and that was super cool. And I got to show him to Abby, which was also really special. And finally, like they were getting her ready to move out of the OR back to the recovery room and everything, and they were like, "Well, Dad, you can just take him out into the hallway." And I was like, "Who are you talking to?" Oh, that's me. Yeah, you're right.
You are now dad. You
Yeah.
have the dad title.
Yeah, you're right. And so I just got up and took this child out into the hallway
By yourself.
and nobody opened the door for me. Nobody. So I'm literally like it was just an awkward door to open, and so
The
I
man
was
who's never held a baby without neck muscles
yeah,
before.
that was the thought that went through my head. I was like, I've never held a baby without neck muscles. They normally come with those, don't they? But so then I'm sitting in my dad's chair out in the hallway all by myself with this baby, and I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this thing? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Who trusted me with this thing? Like, the one who knows what's up is drugged up out on the table over
I
there.
don't remember like much of C-section at all. I don't even remember seeing him for the first time, which is a little sad, but Connor always tells me, he's like, Abby, you don't want to remember
You
the C-section.
don't.
It was not a fun day, huh?
No.
It was not.
So, yeah, and then I gave him to Abby once she was on her hospital bed, and because that's how they have to transport. So, went to the recovery room and fed him, and he did a lot of that. And, yeah.
Yeah.
He was born at 11:03 p.m. on February 26th at 21 and a half inches and 9 pounds 15 ounces. 9 pounds 15 ounces. But he had his first bowel movement in the womb, so he was a full 10 pounds.
He's almost 10 pounds, yeah. So that's our birth story. Thanks for listening. All in all, I feel like we're doing a lot better with it. I'm healing really well, like given all the trauma that happened in my body. He's insanely healthy. He's huge. He eats a ton, which is totally fine. We're just glad he's gaining the way he's supposed to and all the things. All in all, thanks for watching. Stay tuned we recorded some more adventures that we took him on, and I will continue recording all the different things that we do with him. It's really fun. I'm home till I go back to work in August. So lots of fun things that we have planned and that we already have done. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned if you want more updates on our life and how Leo does. And yeah, thanks for being here. Bye.